Welcome to Season 2 of Hye Roots, Descendants of Ararat. I am Giorgio Armani, your host for this episode of the first series devoted to Armenian genealogy. With each new episode of Hye Roots, we will explore different resources that will aid those wishing to learn more about their Armenian family history. In this episode, I want to explore a recurring phenomenon in our community, the attribution of Armenian ancestry to famous individuals, often without reliable evidence. This is not a recent phenomenon by any means. In a 1953 issue of the Hairenik Weekly, now called the Armenian Weekly, longtime columnist Levon Keshishian noted that a newspaper in France had claimed Gregory Peck, the famed actor, was of Armenian heritage, and that his Armenian name had been Krikor Ipekyan. These stories may seem harmless, but as genealogists, we must ask a simple question: what is the source? Ipek means silk in Turkish, and Ipekyan or Ipekcan generally referred to someone in the silk trade. There are two excellent sources available online for those wishing to learn more about the meanings of their Armenian surnames. One, in English, was compiled by Charles Kasparian, available on armeniapedia.org. For many years, Charles had included "What's in a Name?", the definition of an Armenian surname, as part of his regular column from Uncle Garabed's notebook in the Armenian Weekly. The other resource, the Dictionary of Armenian Surnames by Dikran Avedijan, is in Eastern Armenian and can be found on nairi.com. Both are excellent. While most Armenian surnames are patronymic, geography, occupation, and physical characteristics also come into play. Regardless of the origin, understanding the genesis of a surname tells a story about the family. Back to the Hairenik Weekly's article. Keshishian, a well-respected journalist for the Egyptian newspaper Al Ahram, appeared unmoved by the claim of Peck's Armenian ancestry and simply stated, "No comments from this columnist." Neither does it seem the editors of the Armenian Weekly were impressed by the claim. 20 years later, they included the question, "Was Gregory Peck Armenian?" in a Quizmaster queries, with the answer being nonsense, fab, or balderdash, not to mention Billingsgate. Who started this mad one? I have to admit, I had to look up what Billingsgate means. Coarsely or vulgarly abusive language. I am not sure the claim warrants that description, however the claim has not died. In the last 10 years, the claim of Gregory Peck's Armenian ancestry has not only been repeated, but embellished with additional facts. For example, it is claimed his second wife, Veronica Pasani, was the one who traced the family tree and urged Peck to learn more, including taking Armenian language classes later in life. The source for this enlightening information was a Facebook post. Further, the Armenian ancestry is attributed to Peck's grandfather, Samuel Peck, and that on his deathbed, Gregory had only one wish: to visit the land of his ancestors. It is all very touching, but lacks any hard proof whatsoever. No citations, no interviews, nothing. What we do have, though, is a response from Gregory Peck's daughter, Cecilia, to an Armenian adamantly adhering to the claim of Gregory Peck's Armenian ancestry. Cecilia kindly responded, "My father loved the Armenian people, but he was not Armenian. I am very sorry to contradict you, but I feel a responsibility to present accurate information on the internet." She goes on to confirm the Irish ancestry of Gregory's paternal line. Another recent example is the claimed Armenian ancestry of fashion designer Giorgio Armani. Upon his death last year, the Armenian General Benevolent Union, or AGBU, posted of Armani's Armenian ancestry in a Facebook announcement with a link to an article in the Armenian Mirror Spectator. The article was written by T.J. Sidhu, style and culture editor at The Face magazine. In writing about Armani's new Armenian-inspired collection in 2021, Sidhu included his link to Armenia through his parents, who, it was claimed, escaped to Italy in 1915 during the Armenian genocide. The source seems so credible that it has been repeated enough to now be included in Google's artificial intelligence-generated responses. Again, further details embellished. Note that the sources for the Google AI response are the AGBU Facebook post and articles in the Armenian Mirror Spectator and California Courier. All of these claims, though, can be traced back to Sidhu's article with the new addition that it was Giorgio's father, Ugo, that was the Armenian genocide survivor. WikiTree is a global family tree. It claims to be the most accurate and trusted collaborative family tree. In a future episode, I plan to discuss the features of WikiTree in more depth, but for now I want to highlight source citations, the foundation of trustworthy genealogy. On WikiTree, Giorgio's paternal Italian ancestry is shown through 4 generations to the early 1800s. When we dive deeper, we learn that Ugo, the supposed Armenian, was actually born in 1906 in Italy to Italian parents. The source for this information is the civil birth records from the State Archives of Piacenza. That appears to be a pretty reliable source contradicting Giorgio's Armenian ancestry. And what of the original source, T.J. Sidhu? At the very bottom of the original article in the Face magazine from September 2021 is an update from October of that year, stating the article was updated due to the misreporting on the influence of Giorgio Armani's Armenian heritage on the collection. The new version makes no mention of Armenian ancestry, yet the myth perpetuates. Lastly, for this episode, I want to discuss the interesting case of Pope Leo XIV. As soon as he was elected Pope, many started to look into his family background. This time, the claim of Armenian ancestry came from a Turkish source. Within a week of the election, an article appeared in Haberler claiming that researcher Nurhan Cetinkaya had determined that the new pope was a relative through his mother's uncle. Robert Francis Prevost was really Faruk Parselian Pars, whose ancestors had come to the United States from the region of Gessaria, today Kayseri, specifically the town of Evereg. As the old adage goes, if you don't have the facts, dazzle them with detail. We learned from Nurhan that his great-grandmother's brother, Setrag Parselian, migrated to Argentina during the genocide, and the new pope was a descendant of Setrag. A handwritten family tree of sorts was even included. In contrast, there is a well-sourced and documented tree as well as a lengthy article in Wikipedia that details his ancestry for many generations. No Armenians and no one from Argentina. This is not to say that all such claims are false and should be dismissed. And exploring the Armenian ancestry of well-known personalities can be interesting and rewarding. As one example, Arthur Edmund Carew was the stage name of famed silent film actor Hovsep Hovsepian. In this case, there are many errors in his WikiTree profile that I will look into to correct. Hovsep was born in Trabzon around 1881 and migrated to the United States with his brother Ardashes after the death of their father. He rose to prominence as a character actor during the 1920s and died tragically in 1937 from suicide after suffering a debilitating stroke. Some of his noted performances were in The Phantom of the Opera in 1925 and Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1927. Supposedly, he turned down the role of Dracula over a wage dispute. The role was ultimately given to Bela Lugosi. What is not often mentioned, however, is that his brother Ardashes was the well-known author and revolutionary Malchas. I suppose it is natural for a nation small in numbers and at one time not well known to attempt to attach themselves to the famous as a foundation to build from. Another article from the Hairenik Weekly in 1958 by Peter Bitlisian describes it best through the words of William Saroyan, noted playwright and author. We Armenians always have a look of loneliness and frustration. It comes from searching the newspapers every day, trying to read something about an Armenian and never finding it. I know when I was a child, instead of reading through newspapers, we watched the credits of movies and television shows closely for Armenian names. The example emanating from Turkey of claimed Armenian ancestry should be viewed differently perhaps, maybe akin to Americans claiming Native American ancestry. This should not be so easily dismissed, especially with the understanding that many in Turkey do have Armenian roots, the descendants of those taken during the genocide or converted in the prior centuries. This is well documented in historical and academic research. Regardless of motivations, it is important to make use of credible sources and to cite those sources in your work. As noted earlier, a reference can be detailed but not accurate, or it can be accurate but poorly cited. Neither is helpful. The following 3 tables detail the types of sources, information, and evidence from the perspective of genealogy. It is important to know if a source is original or derivative. An original source is the first recording of an event, for example, a birth certificate, whereas a derivative source is a copy or transcription, for example, an indexed database like the Armenian Immigration Project. Information can be primary, given by a person who witnessed the event firsthand, such as a parent reporting the birth of a child, as opposed to secondary, a person reporting the date of their own birth. In addition, does the source supply direct or indirect evidence for the facts presented? An example of direct would be a marriage certificate with the name of the bride and groom as direct evidence of their being married and the date of their marriage. An example of indirect evidence is a census record that lists a mother-in-law, thus indirectly the wife's mother's name. Negative evidence, the absence of expected information, should not be ignored either. Proper documentation serves many purposes, not the least of which is to allow others to reproduce your work. It also helps with evaluating the conclusions being drawn from those sources. Context is critical. Pride in our heritage does not require invention. The documented stories of Armenians are remarkable enough. I hope you found this episode useful in your own Armenian family history research. If you have a question for a future episode, please send it to HyeRoots@Hairenik.com.